Hello Midnights. We hope you enjoy our stories. Next one, The Gathering Storm, recognizing the signs of a potential World War III. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. The specter of a third global conflict, potentially involving nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, looms large in the collective consciousness. While no one can predict such an event with certainty, history offers chilling parallels, and current geopolitical trends reveal a landscape ripe for escalation. Understanding the signs of a potential World War III requires a keen eye on evolving global power dynamics, simmering regional conflicts, and the proliferation of advanced weaponry. 1. Intensifying geopolitical rivalries and a shifting global order. A primary driver for past world wars has been the competition between major powers for influence, resources, and ideological dominance. Today, the world is witnessing a renewed great power competition, often described as a second Cold War, primarily between the United States, China, and Russia. U.S.-China tensions. The relationship between the United States and China has entered a new phase, with technology increasingly becoming the central battleground rather than traditional trade disputes. Strategic export controls, particularly on advanced semiconductors and chip design software, are non-negotiable for national security from the U.S. perspective, causing significant bottlenecks for Chinese firms. China's dominance in rare earth processing also creates potential vulnerabilities for U.S. defense and clean energy sectors. Both nations are rapidly modernizing their militaries, including naval capabilities and advanced weaponry, raising concerns about potential miscalculation or accidental escalation. Russia's assertiveness, Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine, and its broader ambitions in Eastern Europe, have fundamentally reshaped the European security landscape. The conflict has heightened tensions between Russia and NATO, leading to increased military deployments, sanctions, and proxy warfare. Russia continues to engage in significant force generation efforts, reportedly recruiting a substantial number of individuals into military contracts daily in early 2025. They are also developing and deploying new anti-drone measures and other technological adaptations. A further expansion of this conflict or direct confrontation between Russia and NATO could be a catastrophic trigger. Emergence of power blocs, the formation of alliances and counter-alliances, reminiscent of the pre-World War I era, is increasingly evident. The strengthening of ties between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, often characterized as an axis, stands in opposition to existing Western alliances like NATO. This polarization increases the risk of regional conflicts drawing in larger powers, leading to a domino effect. New trade alliances and investment hubs are redefining global power dynamics, with countries like Mexico and Vietnam becoming strategic hubs for supply chains between geopolitical blocs. Profound insight and hint for escalation, the Thucydides trap and the inevitability fallacy. One of the most profound historical parallels is the Thucydides trap, coined by Graham Allison, which describes the high probability of war when a rising power threatens to displace an existing dominant power. Today, the relationship between the United States, the incumbent hegemon, and China, the rising power, perfectly fits this description. It's not merely the existence of this trap, but the rhetoric and actions of both sides that offer a crucial hint for escalation. When either power openly declares the other an existential threat to its core interests or even its way of life, rather than just a competitor, the psychological barrier to direct confrontation significantly lowers. Look for increasing instances of one nation attempting to directly undermine the other's internal stability, for example, overt support for separatist movements, significant cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, or highly aggressive information warfare targeting societal cohesion. Pay attention to shifts from competition in gray zones, for example, economic coercion, proxy conflicts, to direct military posturing or close encounters that risk accidental engagement, for example, aggressive naval maneuvers in contested waters, frequent violations of airspace. 2. Proliferation of regional conflicts and flashpoints. While not directly a world war, the intensification and interconnectedness of regional conflicts can serve as kindling for a wider conflagration. When major powers back opposing sides in these disputes, the risk of direct intervention and escalation grows exponentially. The number of armed conflicts globally is at its highest since the end of the Cold War in 2025. Middle East volatility. The Middle East remains a hotbed of instability. The ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, along with tensions between Israel and Iran, and the various proxy wars in the region, carry a significant risk of drawing in global powers. Any misstep or escalation, particularly involving attacks on critical infrastructure or direct military engagement between state actors, could have far-reaching consequences. As of early 2025, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was being negotiated, but significant uncertainty over the long-term status and governance of the Palestinian territories persists, with Israel expected to maintain forces in Gaza and potentially accelerate annexation efforts in the West Bank. Iran continues to execute a regional strategy, leveraging its nuclear program and proxy networks. The possibility of the current conflict in Gaza igniting a broader regional war is very real, given the involvement of powerful players like Iran and its regional allies. Korean Peninsula. North Korea continues to advance its nuclear weapons and missile programs despite UN sanctions, producing fissile material for weapons and testing new ballistic missile systems. Kim Jong-un views nuclear weapons as a guarantor of regime security and has rejected denuclearization talks. The country is reportedly receiving technical expertise from Moscow in exchange for weapons sales, which could accelerate North Korea's testing and deployment efforts. Any significant provocation or miscalculation on the Korean peninsula could quickly involve the US, China, and other regional powers. Other areas of concern. Other areas with simmering conflicts or heightened tensions include Sudan, Myanmar, Ethiopia, and the India-Pakistan border, particularly concerning Kashmir. While these may seem localized, their potential to destabilize broader regions and involve external actors cannot be discounted. The current year, 2025, has seen numerous armed conflicts raging globally, with civilian fatalities surging and large populations displaced, underscoring the grim reality of widespread, ongoing violence and increased global fragility. The Black Swan event and unforeseen catalysts. While underlying tensions are crucial, history shows that seemingly minor or unforeseen events can act as a sudden catalyst, spiraling out of control. A critical incident that directly targets the sovereign territory or high-value military assets of a major power, especially if it results in significant loss of life, is a profound hint for escalation. In an environment of heightened tension, a black swan event, an unpredictable or unforeseen occurrence, can be misinterpreted or deliberately leveraged to justify a disproportionate response. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which triggered World War I, serves as a stark historical reminder. Look for an event that causes widespread public outrage and a major power, compelling leadership to act decisively regardless of potential consequences. This could be a sophisticated cyber attack causing widespread societal collapse, for example, a sustained grid-down scenario in a major city, a biological attack, or a direct military clash leading to significant casualties. Pay close attention to regions where multiple major powers have overlapping interests and fragile political situations, for example, the South China Sea, the Arctic, the Eastern Mediterranean. A fishing boat sinking, an accidental collision, or a misidentified drone could quickly escalate if trust and communication channels are not robust. 3. Erosion of international norms and institutions. The effectiveness of international institutions and established norms in de-escalating conflicts and fostering cooperation is crucial in preventing large-scale wars. A decline in their influence can pave the way for a more anarchic international system. Weakening multilateralism. There is a growing trend of nations prioritizing national interests over collective security, leading to a weakening of multilateral institutions like the United Nations. The UN Security Council, for example, has been largely paralyzed, reflecting a geopolitical recession where global institutions no longer align with the international balance of power. While the Peacebuilding Commission continues its work, resources for peace and conflict prevention are at their second lowest level since 2004. This makes it harder to build consensus, mediate disputes, and enforce international law. Disregard for international law. Instances of states disregarding international law, such as the violation of territorial sovereignty or the use of chemical weapons, erode trust and embolden other actors to act with impunity. Arms race and nuclear proliferation. A renewed arms race, particularly in nuclear weapons and advanced conventional weaponry, increases the risk of conflict. The spread of nuclear technology to more states also magnifies the danger of a nuclear exchange, even if unintended. Experts note a growing concern about the potential for nuclear weapons to be used in a future conflict, with some even expecting their use by at least one actor in the coming decade. The UK's 2025 Strategic Defence Review, for instance, reaffirms and reinvests in its nuclear deterrent, indicating a continued emphasis on nuclear capabilities in the current security landscape. The nuclear threshold and the use it or lose it dilemma. The existence of nuclear weapons has historically acted as a deterrent, creating a mutually assured destruction (MAD) scenario. However, this deterrent is not absolute, and its stability is being eroded by new doctrines and technological advancements. A crucial hint for escalation is the development and deployment of new classes of strategic and tactical nuclear weapons, coupled with changes in nuclear doctrine. Limited nuclear war doctrines or the development of low-yield nuclear weapons can paradoxically make their use seem more palatable. This reduces the psychological barrier to crossing the nuclear threshold. Observe any shift in rhetoric from a no-first-use policy, where a nuclear power pledges never to use nuclear weapons unless first attacked by them, to an escalate to de-escalate doctrine, where tactical nuclear weapons might be used to regain battlefield advantage in a conventional conflict. Russia's doctrine is particularly concerning in this regard. Furthermore, the proliferation of advanced missile defense systems could create a use-it-or-lose-it dilemma. If one side believes it might be able to intercept an incoming strike, it could be tempted to launch a preemptive strike if it perceives an imminent threat. Conversely, the side without effective defenses might be more inclined to launch on warning, fearing its arsenal would be neutralized otherwise. The erosion of red lines and strategic ambiguity. Clarity about red lines, actions that will trigger a severe response, can help deter aggression. However, when these lines become blurred or are repeatedly crossed without consequence, the risk of miscalculation increases. A significant hint for escalation is the repeated, unchallenged violations of previously established red lines by an assertive power. When a major power successfully crosses multiple implicit or explicit red lines without facing a decisive counter-response, it can embolden that power to take increasingly aggressive actions, leading to a miscalculation by the opposing side that eventually triggers a forceful reaction. Observe instances where a state uses proxy forces or hybrid warfare tactics to achieve strategic objectives while maintaining plausible deniability, especially if these actions are increasingly successful in destabilizing target regions. If the targeted powers fail to effectively counter these gray zone tactics, it could encourage bolder, more direct actions. Also, look for the abandonment of established diplomatic norms or arms control treaties without replacement. The collapse of treaties like the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty or the Treaty on Open Skies reduces transparency and increases the likelihood of misjudgment. 4. Economic stress and resource competition. Economic factors have often played a significant role in triggering conflicts. Competition for vital resources, economic disparities, and global economic instability can exacerbate existing tensions and create new ones. Resource scarcity, increasing global demand for resources like water, food, and energy, exacerbated by climate change, can lead to competition and conflict, especially in regions already prone to instability. Economic inequality. Significant economic inequality within and between nations can fuel resentment, social unrest, and radicalization, creating fertile ground for internal and external conflicts. Trade wars and supply chain vulnerabilities, protectionist trade policies and disruptions to global supply chains can lead to economic hardship and retaliatory measures, further straining international relations. The global economy is at a precarious juncture in mid-2025, marked by heightened trade tensions and elevated policy uncertainty, leading to slower global growth and a projected halving of trade growth. A World War III scenario would likely involve unprecedented destruction, massive economic tolls, and significant supply chain vulnerabilities, leading to hyperinflation and currency devaluation. Supply chain disruptions are a top strategic concern for global logistics and procurement executives, with geopolitical instability, cybersecurity threats, natural disasters, and labor shortages all contributing to a complex and fragile environment. 5. The role of technology and misinformation. Advances in technology, while offering immense benefits, also present new avenues for conflict and escalation. Cyber warfare, the increasing sophistication of cyber attacks, targeting critical infrastructure, financial systems, and military networks, poses a significant threat. Nation-states and rogue factions are rapidly integrating cyber attacks into their military arsenals, with cyber operations becoming a first-strike option in geopolitical conflicts. They are becoming more refined, using compromised credentials and leveraging trusted cloud services to distribute malware. A major cyber attack could be perceived as an act of war, leading to a conventional response. Taiwan, for example, is increasingly vulnerable to hybrid threats including cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. AI and autonomous weapons. The development of artificial intelligence, AI, and autonomous weapon systems, AWS, raises ethical and strategic concerns. While there is no single global regulation of AI and weapons as of 2025, legal frameworks are emerging that emphasize human control and accountability. The speed and autonomy of such systems could accelerate decision-making in conflicts, increasing the risk of unintended escalation. Challenges remain in defining standards, ensuring compliance across diverse regulations, and achieving transparency and auditability of AI decisions in military applications. Disinformation and propaganda. The widespread dissemination of disinformation and propaganda through social media can inflame public opinion, deepen societal divisions, and manipulate narratives to justify aggressive actions. Foreign state actors are increasingly employing sophisticated tactics, including AI and deepfake technology, to produce fabricated content and amplify false narratives. Germany, for instance, is actively working to combat foreign influence and manipulation, particularly from Russia, in the context of its 2025 elections. Internal instability and the diversionary war theory. Internal political or economic instability within a major power can sometimes lead its leadership to pursue external conflicts as a means of diverting public attention or consolidating power. A key hint for escalation is when a major power facing severe internal crises, economic collapse, widespread social unrest, political illegitimacy, suddenly adopts a highly aggressive foreign policy stance. The diversionary war theory suggests that leaders facing domestic challenges may initiate foreign conflicts to rally the populace around a common enemy, distract from internal problems, or reassert their authority. Pay close attention to leaders making highly nationalistic or inflammatory statements directed at external enemies when facing significant domestic dissent or economic downturns. Also, observe any rapid and unexpected military mobilization or aggressive military exercises shortly after significant internal protests or political upheaval in a major power. Signs that a World War III could outbreak. Beyond the underlying dynamics, concrete actions and developments serve as direct red flags that the world is moving closer to a major conflict. 1. Direct military clashes between major powers, or their proxies. While proxy conflicts are ongoing, a direct military engagement, even if initially limited, between forces of the US, China, Russia, or their primary allies, for example, NATO versus Russia, would be the most immediate and alarming sign. This could involve naval incidents, aerial confrontations, or direct ground clashes in contested territories. 2. Sudden, large-scale military mobilization, unexplained or rapid deployment of significant military forces, beyond routine exercises, on the borders of potential adversaries or in highly contested regions, would signal imminent danger. This includes active call-ups of reserves and large-scale industrial shifts to wartime production. The UK's 2025 Strategic Defence Review, for example, emphasises a move to warfighting readiness and the establishment of a new Military Strategic Headquarters, MSHQ, from April 1, 2025. 3. Aggressive cyberattacks targeting critical infrastructure. A series of widespread and debilitating cyberattacks on a nation's power grids, financial systems, communication networks, or military command and control systems, especially if attributed to a state actor, would be a clear act of war. Experts predict an escalation in state-sponsored cyberattacks aimed at creating widespread disruption and psychological stress in 2025, using advanced technologies like AI-driven malware. 4. Heightened rhetoric and ultimata. A significant shift in diplomatic language from negotiation to accusatory, non-negotiable demands, often accompanied by explicit threats of military action if ultimatums are not met. This could be a public declaration from a head of state or a high-ranking military official. 5. Withdrawal from key international treaties and institutions. The sudden abandonment of crucial arms control treaties, non-proliferation agreements, or withdrawal from international bodies designed to prevent conflict, particularly by nuclear powers, indicates a disregard for global stability and a preference for unilateral action. 6. Economic warfare escalating to blockades. Beyond sanctions, the implementation of full-scale naval blockades of vital trade routes or energy supplies, or other actions designed to cripple an adversary's economy through force, would be a major escalatory step. 7. Nuclear posturing and drills. Increased frequency or highly publicized nuclear drills, deployment of tactical nuclear weapons to frontline areas, or open threats of nuclear use, even as a deterrent, would be a grave sign of approaching the nuclear threshold. Reports already suggest some experts expect nuclear weapons to be used by at least one actor in the coming decade. 8. Internal readiness measures. Governments advising citizens to prepare for conflict, including upgrading bunkers, stockpiling emergency provisions, or conducting widespread civil defense drills, as seen in some European countries taking steps to become war-capable, indicates a serious perception of impending war. World Civil Defense Day in March 2025, for instance, emphasized the importance of civil protection, disaster management, and emergency preparedness through awareness programs, training sessions, and mock drills. 9. Alliance expansion and militarization, rapid expansion of existing military alliances, the formation of new, overtly aggressive military pacts, or the massive rearmament of new member states on direct borders with adversaries. The UK's Strategic Defence Review 2025 explicitly states a NATO-first policy, stepping up on European security and enhancing nuclear, new tech, and updated conventional capabilities. 10. Significant supply chain disruptions, widespread, deliberate disruptions to global supply chains beyond typical economic factors, especially those affecting critical resources like energy, food, or essential minerals, could signify preparation for or initiation of a conflict. Geopolitical instability is a major cause of supply chain disruption in 2025, forcing companies to retool infrastructure and adapt to continuous disruptions. Conclusion: a precarious balance. The current global landscape presents a complex and precarious balance. While the direct outbreak of a World War III remains a terrifying prospect that most nations actively seek to avoid due to the mutually assured destruction inherent in nuclear conflict, the signs are concerning. The confluence of intensifying geopolitical rivalries, unresolved regional conflicts, a weakening international order, economic pressures, and the disruptive potential of new technologies creates a volatile environment. By closely monitoring these profound dynamics and specific hints, one can gain a more nuanced understanding of the delicate balance that maintains global peace and the significant risks that could tip it towards widespread conflict. Preventing a global catastrophe requires robust diplomacy, de-escalation efforts, a commitment to international law, and addressing the root causes of conflict such as inequality and resource scarcity. The lessons of history teach us that complacency in the face of rising tensions can have devastating consequences. Vigilance, dialogue, and a collective commitment to peace are paramount in navigating these turbulent times.